All right, everyone, welcome back. Today's class is going to be a thoracic spine focus class, which I am super excited for. So you're going to notice that we're going to start with some breath work. We're going to try and get your ribs moving. We're going to try and reestablish expansion in common areas that are restricted in many people. Then we're going to work on actually getting your thoracic spine to flex piece by piece and go through one of my favorite exercises that I came up with, just kind of playing around with things to help people feel that, know if they're doing it properly, and to help kind of encourage that flexion back into the thoracic spine. Only after we have worked on flexion are we then going to start to work on extension. And you're going to notice we're going to approach that a little bit differently. Your thoracic spine also needs to be able to side bend from side to side. So we're going to work on segmental extension and segmental side flexion as well as flexion. So we're going to take you piece by piece and work on segmenting our way into side flexion, going both ways. We're going to try and get some air into the sides of our rib cage simultaneously. And then after that, after we've done our flexion, our extension, our side flexion, then we're going to hit a drill for rotation, and we're going to do it in a way that's probably going to be very different for you or something that you haven't experienced before, and we're going to leverage our shoulder blades in the process to help to improve that rotation. Once we've done all of that, then we're going to check in with our thoracic spine cars. Now for props, you're going to notice that I have my box here, I have my stick, and I have my ball. You do not need a box. This is just going to serve as a wall for me so that you guys can get a nice side view for that particular exercise. You will need a stick. You will need a ball. It does not need to be a tennis ball though. Anything that you can actually roll down your spine, and you'll see when we get to that part, will also work. If you have a tennis ball, great, grab it. Now, for this first exercise, for simplicity's sake, I'm actually just going to do this on the ground, but you're welcome to do this in a chair, either if you're more comfortable with that or if you just want to experiment with it. It's arguably better in a chair. However, like I said, for simplicity, I'm just going to do this on the ground. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to take my stick, I'm going to have my hands about shoulder width apart, and I'm going to anchor it on the other side of my feet. You can play with how much hip flexion you're in when you're doing this exercise as well, if you're doing it on the ground. If you're doing it in a chair, I recommend setting up where you've got your hips underneath your shoulders, not your hips way in front of your shoulders, not your hips way behind your shoulders, but get yourself stacked. So if I'm doing this on the ground, I'm going to take my stick and I'm going to place it on the other side of my feet. If you're doing it in a chair, you're going to have to take your stick and probably put it inside a door frame and then lean back into the door frame, or you could use a squat rack or whatever you have accessible to you so that the stick is anchored and then you don't actually have to place it behind your feet. So like I said, you can play with how much hip flexion you want to be in here. What I'm now going to do once I've got that in place is I'm going to think about trying to take my sternum, so that bone that lives in the front of your rib cage, and sink it backwards, which is going to cause me to sit back into a stretch between my shoulder blades. Meaning I'm going to notice kind of a stretching sensation in my upper back. Let's see if I can get my hair out of the way there. So I'm going to sink back into that. So I feel a nice stretch between my shoulder blades. I don't have my shoulders up in my ears. I'm maintaining a decent amount of space there, and I'm just kind of falling back into it. So I feel a stretch somewhere in the back of my rib cage. Now, like I said, you can play with different angles here, and we're going to hang out here. We're going to hit a few breaths here. So what's going to happen is when I do this breathing, I'm going to do it very strategically. I'm going to inhale silently through my nose. I should not hear the inhale. You should not hear the inhale. We want it to be super slow, and you are resisting the urge to let it go into your belly because your ribs are not in your belly, and I want this air going into your rib cage and into your lungs and not into the belly today. So when we take that slow inhale, we're trying not to let it go into the belly. We're trying to bring it in super slowly. When you exhale, you will blow it out through your mouth. And as you exhale, you're going to see, can I sink that bone in my sternum back a little bit further? Can I sit back into a deeper stretch between my shoulder blades? So as that air comes out, you will sink back into that stretch. You will stay there, and then you're going to take another slow inhale. If you exhale fully and you do a good job of it, you're going to notice in like the last 15 to 20% of that exhale, your abdominals, your obliques will naturally engage for you without you even having to think about it. You're just blowing the air out and it happens for you. Your job is to maintain that, not add to it and bear down, but just maintain it as you take the next slow inhale, which is also going to help to prevent that air from going into your belly, and it's going to send even more air into your back on the next breath. We're going to repeat that about 5 times. I will do my best to talk you through it while I do it with you, but I am going to prioritize the coaching you over the doing it well myself, because it's important that you guys do it well at home versus me just trying to show off here, okay? So let's do it together. Let's sit back into that stretch between our shoulder blades, whether you're using your feet to anchor the stick or you're using the wall or door frame or squat rack, whatever you're using. We're going to take a nice slow inhale. You don't want to hear it. You don't want it to go into your belly. When you exhale, you're going to blow that air out and try and hang back into a deeper stretch between your shoulder blades. Now you should feel your abs. Don't lose them. Take another super slow inhale. Once you're full, you're going to blow that air out, sit back into a deeper stretch. Really visualize your sternum going back. Nice slow inhale, not into the belly. And then you're going to blow it all out, sink a little further back. Hold for just a second. Silent inhale, not into the belly. And then you're going to blow it all out, sink further back if you can. Try not to tense your entire body up. Nice slow inhale. Last one. And when you exhale, just sink a little further back into that stretch. Amazing. So you should feel a big stretch in your upper back. And as you get better at that and you don't let that air go rushing into your belly, you should feel your ribs actually opening up and expanding and rotating outwards as you slowly bring that air in. And then you should feel a stretch from the inside. So when you use that stick and you reach forward, you get a stretch from the outside, meaning you lengthen all that tissue in your back. Then you maintain that stretch. And when you take that slow inhale and you don't let it all go rushing into your belly, you maintain that oblique contraction. Then when you bring that air in, it has to go into your back, and therefore the tissue in your back has to yield and stretch further from the inside, so from the inside out, to accommodate that air coming in, and you get an even deeper stretch as you inhale. Those stretches from the inside out are super, super effective, especially as compared to just stretching from the outside, if the underlying problem or a underlying problem that you have is a stiff rib cage. Now I'm going to show you one other way that you can accomplish that as well. There are so many different ways. You're going to see many of them in the human infrastructure classes too. But what we're going to do now is we're going to come into an all fours position. I'm going to set up with my elbows underneath of my shoulders. So I don't want my elbows way up here. I want to try and get my elbows under my shoulders so that I can actually drive through my elbows to try and get my sternum again in the front of my chest to float up towards the ceiling and to get my shoulder blades out of the way. We're going to do that exact same breathing here, which means that when you take those slow inhales, don't let it all go into your belly. I want you to exhale fully, let your abs naturally engage as you gently press the back of your arms and your elbows into the ground. Maintain that contraction that you collect on the exhale in the front. Don't lose it as you take that silent inhale. That's going to pump more air into the back of your rib cage and help to open you up back there and decompress your thoracic spine. And we're going to repeat 4 to 5 breaths in this doing it the same way, so same style of breathing, but in a different position or in this position here. Now, if you're uncomfortable here, if you've got knee, ankle, hip problems, please feel free to either place a yoga block underneath you and sit on your yoga block, or if you need to, you can come up, you can do this seated in a chair. So you're just in your chair and you can rest your elbows on a table and just think about pressing forward and sinking your sternum back as you breathe. So nice, slow drive that sternum up towards the ceiling. Once we're up there, we're going to take our first silent inhale, trying not to let it all go into the belly. And then we're going to blow it all out as we gently push through our elbows to get our sternum to go a little higher towards the ceiling. We're going to hold for just a second. Silent inhale, don't lose your abs. And then you're going to blow and press. Again, try not to tense up your entire body. Your abs will be tense. Slow inhale. Exhale, fully press. Hold, slow inhale. Exhale, fully press. Last one, slow inhale. And full exhale. Very good. So again, that's just another option you can play with, and you can see which of those two did I like better, which one worked better for me, which one got more air in my back. How did it feel doing it on the ground with the stick? How did it feel doing it in the chair with the stick? Play with those options and start pumping some air into the back of that rib cage. Now, what we're gonna move on to, this is one I've been playing with a lot lately and I love it. So I actually haven't even given this exercise to a client yet. You guys are gonna be the first people to do it. Many of you have heard of wall peel, so that's a common exercise. We're gonna add a few things to it here. Now I'm gonna do it in what's called long sitting, meaning I'm gonna sit up against my wall with my legs straight out like this, okay? You are welcome to do this exercise in standing and just lean back with your back up against the wall, which I have done in other classes. Or you're welcome to join me in this seated position here. Whichever one, again, you prefer or you want to experiment with both, like I said, just play around with it and see what works better for you. But for me today, I'm going to be doing this in a long seated position. I don't want your tailbone right up against that wall. I actually want you to sit out from the wall just a little bit, almost enough that like you can take your fist and kind of barely fit it between your tailbone and the wall. So you have a little bit of space there. You have a very slight backward lean. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this ball, you're going to place it just below that big bump at the base of your neck, okay? So you're going to notice a big bone that kind of sticks out at the top there. That tennis ball or whatever ball it is that you're using is going to sit there to start with. And what's going to happen is we're going to slowly curl and flex and peel our thoracic spine off of the wall. And you're going to try and make sure that that ball very slowly rolls down your spine, and you want to feel it connect with every vertebrae along the way. So the tip of every vertebrae, you're trying to feel that ball roll down through that spot and make sure that it doesn't just drop on you. Because if it just drops, that means you just peeled a whole bunch of vertebrae off the wall all at once, rather than curling and flexing your way down. So the ball is also a feedback tool that way. So ball goes just below that big pokey spine, or big pokey vertebrae on your spine. One arm's gonna wrap around, grab the other shoulder. The other arm will do the same thing so that your elbows in the front are overlapping, kind of like an alligator's mouth. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly try and curl ourselves off of that box, trying to make sure that that ball goes nice and slow down our spine. And if you ever go, I feel like I can't feel the ball, where did it go? Is it still there? You can just pause, lean back slightly. Oh, there it is. You'll feel that pressure point, and then you go, okay, there's my ball. And then you can continue down. Now, we do not rush this exercise. This is something that, again, we're really focusing on what we're feeling. You are really dialed in. You're not distracted, which is a part of why I'm saying that it's actually hard to do this while speaking, because you want to be so dialed into what you're feeling and making sure that that ball slowly creeps down the wall and down your spine. And like I said, trying to make it connect with as many vertebrae as you can along the way. Take note of any points where it wants to really just fall through. You're not going to get all the way down, or at least most people aren't, and that's okay. You're just going to get as low as you can. And slowly, notice I'm still going. We're not rushing it. Centimeter by centimeter, working your way down. As you get to the base of your thoracic spine, you're going to notice that it eventually just drops, or you lose the ability to make it go really, really slow. And you can just check in with yourself and go, okay, how far did I get today? Goal will be over weeks to get a little bit further, control it a little bit better, and touch in with as many vertebrae as you can along the way. I'm approaching the base of my thoracic spine here. So when I check in with that ball, as I lean back here, I'll do a quick check. Where's that ball at right now? It's at about that level. So then I go, okay, over time I'm going to see if I can get that ball a little bit lower and see if maybe in a few weeks I can get it down to that point. And you just slowly work your way through it. Take note of how it feels week to week, and you should notice you can control it a little better, you can feel it a little bit better, and you can flex your spine a little bit better as well. Now moving on to the next drill, this one's going to be a little bit different. So now we're going to use the same setup, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that ball, I'm going to put it right below that big pokey vertebrae at the top of my spine, and then I'm actually going to let it fall a few inches. I'm going to let it sit right there. I'm going to cross my arms over top of each other, elbows lined up in the front. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus in or dial in on where that ball is. And I'm going to try and use it as a bit of a fulcrum, such that from the ball up, I'm going to try and extend my spine over top of that ball and use that ball slightly as a leverage point, but really more so as a feedback tool, to just drive extension and go, okay, can I extend at that particular spot or that particular vertebrae? Now you don't want to see your whole spine extending, so I don't want to see your belly button popping up, your pelvis dumping forward, and your whole spine going. I want you to try and isolate it to that spot and really just think about, okay, can I try and get from the ball up to extend back over that spot, and then you can come out of it. You can even play with going into a little bit of flexion and go, okay, can I use that again, ball as a tactile point or a feedback point or a target or a fulcrum, to then go, okay, I'm going to flex, I'm going to open and gap my vertebrae at that particular spot, and then I'm going to go back. Can I extend over top of it, and then coming back down? And we're going to move it to different areas throughout our thoracic spine. So give me a few reps here, trying to flex at that spot, and then trying to extend at that spot. Then you're just going to roll it down slightly further, just a little bit, and you're going to do the same thing there. And you're going to go, okay, now at this particular area, can I flex right over top, or sorry, extend right over top of that ball? So sternum goes up in the air, trying to get the work done and the muscles working right where that ball is. Then you're going to reverse and go, okay, can I gap that particular area of my spine and create flexion there? And then right back into extension, trying to create it right at that spot, and then back into flexion. Play around with a few reps there. Let that ball drive or fall just a little further down. I'm going to do the exact same thing at a lower point in your spine and go, okay, now where's that ball? Find it, feel it, and go, okay, can I create extension right where that ball is? Coming back and coming back forward into flexion. Same thing, back into extension. Again, not using your whole spine, just trying to drive it right where that ball is and trying to bias or funnel the work in your extensors to as close to that ball as you possibly can. Same thing, extend right at that spot, then relax, let that ball roll down a little further, and then go okay. Same thing here, we'll make this our last spot. And slowly dial in on that ball, make sure you can feel it, find it, and then go, okay, now that I know where it is, can I extend right at that particular area? And can I flex right at that particular area? Back into extension, and back into flexion. Now you can play with as many spots in your spine as you want, as many reps in your spine as you want. I'm just showing you guys this drill, having you try at least 3 or 4 different spots, but it's something that I want you to play with. And as you notice, oh yeah, that particular area is locked up, or as you visit the segmentation focus class that I discussed earlier that's in the OHF subscription, you'll start to become familiar with, oh yeah, this section of my spine needs help. This section's really locked up. Then when you do drills like this, you can take that ball and spend a little extra time working in those particular areas that are limited for you to help you get the biggest return on investment. Now, moving along, we're gonna come back up into a kneeling base position. Now, if you're uncomfortable here, again, you have hip, knee, ankle problems, feel free to come up and do this drill in an all fours position. If you do have access to this position here, I'd ask that you do it here. But again, if you don't feel bad going into all fours, it's totally fine. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna start to sprinkle in a little bit of segmental side flexion now. So I'm gonna work on trying to close off one side of my spine, create compression on this side, and gap and open up and lengthen the other side of my spine so that we get opening on one side and closing on the other side, and then we're gonna go the other way with it. Now when you do this, I want you to visualize your rib cage where you have all of those different ribs, and you're gonna close off the ribs one section or one rib at a time as you segmentally side bend that way, as you open up the ribs one segment or one rib at a time on the other side. So I don't just want you to go side bend, I want you to piece by piece side bend your way through your thoracic spine and through your rib cage. So we're gonna place our hands down on the ground. We're gonna start going to the right side. Now, as I try to close off my thoracic spine and my rib cage rib by rib by rib, what you can see in my body as I do this is I'm gonna try and create as many wrinkles in my shirt on the right side as we go to the right, and create as few wrinkles in my shirt, or really lengthen out my shirt on the other side. That's the equivalent of what I'm trying to do with my ribs. So in this position here, we're just gonna be in a neutral position to start, so I don't want you super extended, I don't want you super flexed, we're just gonna hang out somewhere in the middle. And I'm gonna initiate with my shoulder blade. So I'm actually gonna go right shoulder blade pulls down into my right back pocket, left shoulder blade comes up towards my left ear. That's gonna initiate things from the top, and then I'm gonna start to really focus on just my top ribs, starting to compress on the right side, trying to create folds quite high up in the right side of my shirt as I lengthen the top left side of my rib cage. Segmentally compressing my way down. As a consequence of that, my right shoulder is moving towards my right hip, and I'm gonna try and close my right side of my rib cage down rib by rib by rib until I literally can't go any further. Simultaneously, I'm lengthening the left side of my rib cage. Now, when I can't go any further, just to get a little extra length on that left side, if you watch my sit bones here, I'm gonna take my sit bones and shift them to the other side of my left foot so that my left hip drops down to the ground, and I'm gonna capture a little extra length here. Now from here, I feel a big stretch in the left side of my rib cage. So as I hang out here, I'm now welcome to take a few breaths here. You can also experiment with, okay, if I layered in what we worked on earlier, and I stay in this position, but I take my sternum and I gently press it away from the floor, do I feel an even bigger stretch? If so, maybe you want to take a few breaths there as well. but you're really gonna stay closed off on the right side, lengthened out on the left side. And then once you've done that, once you've done your few breaths, you've given yourself a bit of time there, we're gonna segmentally work our way out of it. So I'm now gonna start to, actually let's just pick our pelvis up first and bring ourselves back up top. There we go, and we'll initiate from the top on this one. So I'm gonna initiate with my shoulder blades. My right shoulder blade's now gonna come up to my ear. My left shoulder blade's gonna go into my back pocket. And now I'm gonna start to try and get rid of all these wrinkles or open up my ribs on that right side. Rib by rib, starting from the top, working my way down. Closing off the left side of that rib cage, one rib at a time. Left shoulder's coming down to left hip. So now I'm creating a bunch of wrinkles on the left side of my rib cage. I'm lengthening the right side of my rib cage. And then to capture a little extra from the bottom, once again, if you watch my sit bones here and my hips, I'm gonna shift my hips over to that side, right hip to the floor, grab a little extra length. I can hang out here and take a few breaths, or I can test and go, okay, if I drive my sternum towards the ceiling slightly, or I create some space between my shoulder blades, do I feel an even bigger stretch, or do I feel less of a stretch, or just how does that feel for me? Roll with whichever one feels better. Hang out there for a few breaths, and then you're gonna segmentally bring your way out of it. We'll first just bring our pelvis back up into our original kind of neutral-ish position, and then we'll start from the top. Right shoulder blade comes down. We'll move through this one a little bit faster here. So right shoulder blade down, left shoulder blade up, segmentally closing off one rib at a time from the top, working our way down through that right side. Right hip and right shoulder start to move towards each other. And then if I want to grab a little extra, I can fall over to the left side and bring my left hip to the floor, grab a little extra length on that side, and then come back, and then work my way back through from the top down. The left shoulder blade comes down to the left hip, and I start segmentally, piece by piece by piece, closing off that left side of the rib cage, and then sinking back over to the right side with my right hip, and then finding my way back to neutral. As my right shoulder blade comes down, my pelvis comes back over top of my heels, and ending like that. Now, if you go through that and you're like, damn, I really like that, I wonder if I can get a little bit more out of it, you can actually take your hands, do that same drill, but cross your hands over top, and that'll also help you capture a little bit more length on that side, and it's just something that you can play with, again, assuming you've got the shoulder mobility to do so. Now for this last drill, we're gonna need our stick, so this is where our stick comes in. We're gonna hit a little bit of rotation work here. So what this is gonna look like is actually, you know what, I'll do my right side first. I'm gonna have my stick out in front of me, okay? And I'm not gonna have my hand at shoulder height. I'm actually gonna take my hand and move it down so that it's angled downwards a little bit. So my arm is kind of down on a bit of an angle. My other arm is gonna be doing the exact same thing behind me. So I'm not way up here, I'm not way down here. I'm off like 20-ish degrees again. Almost like if you were a power walking, basically where your hands would end up if you were power walking. Now what we're gonna work on here is rotation. So do make sure that you're not super extended like this when you're doing this for the same reason that we discussed at the start of this class. And instead, relax. Give yourself a good exhale. See if you can sink that sternum back a little bit, just like we worked on again in some of those other exercises. And so you're gonna feel, for those of you that are used to being very extended, you might even feel a little bit slouchy. It's okay, all right? Just exhale, let that sternum fall back, kind of reach your right arm away from you a little bit, and that'll help kind of unlock our thoracic spine so that we're more free to capture some rotation here. Now what's gonna happen here is that as we incorporate a little bit of breathing, we're gonna see if we can get our rib cage rotating to the left. So I'm gonna try and get my sternum pointed towards you guys on the camera. The way that I'm gonna do that is, like I said before, I'm gonna have my stick, I'm gonna reach away from me a little bit, my sternum comes back, my other arm's gonna be back behind me. When I take a nice slow inhale, I'm gonna gently pull my left shoulder blade into my spine. I'm not bringing it up to my ear, I'm just gently bringing it into my spine. When I exhale, I'm going to try and make that stick tip away from me by reaching my shoulder blade on the right side away. And as I do that, that's going to cause my sternum to rotate left, i.e. cause my rib cage and my thoracic spine to rotate left. I'll get as much rotation as I can on that exhale. Then I'm going to stay there, and as I inhale, I'm going to try and pull my left shoulder blade a little bit closer to my spine. Then I'm going to exhale, see if I can capture a little bit more rotation, and breath by breath, I'm going to work my way over to the left side. You might get some cramping here. Fair warning. Again, you might have just unlocked some rotation in your rib cage. You might be able to access more rotation now than you could an hour ago. Your muscles might not used to be working in these positions. Some of these muscles on the back side, as you gently pull that shoulder blade into the spine, this might be a new thing for them, so just expect it. Don't freak out if you get it. Just try and nice and slowly breathe through it. Don't tense up too much in the process. Don't try and force it, but just take note of these things. If it's new to you, you might get some of that. If you're quite stiff, you might get some of that, and it's okay. So first things first, join me here. We've got our stick, arms are low, left hand's behind us. We're going to exhale, just let that sternum sink back, reach that stick away slightly. There we go. Now we're relatively unlocked. As we slowly inhale, we're going to pull our left shoulder blade into our spine. Notice how my hand's not going higher necessarily. I'm just bringing my left shoulder blade back. When I exhale, I'm going to reach through my right arm, get my right shoulder blade to move away from my spine. Stick leans forward a little bit more. Slow inhale, left shoulder blade comes into that spine a little more. Exhale, reach through that right arm. Notice how my sternum is starting to point a little bit closer towards you. Slow inhale, left shoulder blade comes into the spine a little more. As we exhale, we reach through that right arm. Notice how the stick has now run into the box because I'm really reaching with it. Slow inhale, left shoulder blade into the spine. And exhale, reach. Now my sternum is pointing off this way, whereas when I started, it was pointing straight ahead. Now we're going to switch. We're going to do the same thing to the other side. Let me give you guys a front view on this one. So, sticks out in front, arms not up at shoulder height, we're down on a bit of an angle. Same thing with our arm behind us, which is now our right arm. We're back, we're not way up here, we're not right into our hip, but we're off behind us a little bit, 15, 20 degrees, or if you imagine yourself power walking, basically where that arm would end up if you were power walking. We're gonna start with a good exhale and just reaching our left arm away from us, trying to get our sternum to go back. Unlock that rib cage for us so that we're now free to rotate. Nice slow inhale, pull your right shoulder blade into your spine. And then as we exhale, we reach that left arm away from us. Shoulder blade on the left side moves away from the spine. Slowly inhale, right shoulder blade moves into the spine. Now if you just pay attention to my sternum when I exhale and reach, rotates off to that right side a little bit more. Stay there. Nice slow inhale, right shoulder blade finds its way towards the spine a little closer. And when I exhale, I'm going to reach that left shoulder blade away. And now my sternum's pointing off this way. So I've captured some rotation along the way. So that's another drill that you can play with to start to get yourself getting some rotation in there, getting those shoulder blades moving, unlocking your thoracic spine so that it's free to rotate as well, and getting that nice big stretch between your shoulder blade and your spine, and just kind of pumping some air to different sections of your rib cage. Now, as I said at the beginning of class, we are going to end with one nice slow shoulder blade car. We're going to wrap this up in a nice little bow and just explore a little bit of thoracic movement. You can do this in whatever position works best for you. If you want to sit in a chair, if you want to join me in this kneeling position, if you want to come up into tall kneeling, again, whatever feels best for you. So let's go arms overlapping over our chest again. You are free to bring your chin down into your chest if you'd like. I'm wearing a microphone right now and I will blow your ears out if I do so, so I'm not gonna do that myself, but just know that just because I'm not doesn't mean you shouldn't. Now from here, we're gonna work on imagining that ball is still behind our spine, and we're gonna try and segmentally round our upper spine. Again, just like you had that ball there, just like we worked on earlier, until you find full flexion. Really taking your time with it. Once you're fully flexed, we are going to rotate over to the left side. So sternum starts to point to the left side of the room. Then you're going to dip your left shoulder down to your left hip, just like we worked on earlier. Close off that left side, open up that right side. Then you're going to start to segmentally extend your way through your upper back, so that your sternum points up towards the ceiling. You're gonna come around. Once we find midline, we're gonna rotate and side bend over to the right side. And then you're gonna close that right side down as you rotate your way back through. Back into full flexion. And then we're gonna reverse and do one nice slow rep over to the right side. Sternum rotates over to the right side of the room. Right shoulder starts to dip down towards your right hip. Sternum starts to point up towards the ceiling. Coming all the way back around, rotating all the way over to that left side, side bending all the way over to that left side, and then curling your way back through, finding yourself in that nice fully flexed position. And then we're going to come out of it by piece, extending our spine, starting from the bottom, and slowly bringing our sternum back up to neutral. And that is it for this thoracic class. Bit of a longer class today, a lot of education built into that one, but I know that this is a big problem area for a lot of people. Thank you for everybody that messages me being like, hey, this is restricted for me. What can I do for this? Can we add classes for this? That's where these types of classes come from. So this class was 100% fueled by your messages and inspired by your messages. I know that this is an area that you guys are struggling with because you're open with me and constantly communicating these things to me, so thank you for doing so. If anybody has any questions about this class, do not hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed it. If you found something in this class helpful, please let me know. Again, it helps me to know what's helpful for you so I can gear more content around that. Take care, you guys, and we will see you in the next video.